Shalom Aleichem, everybody. A gitten Erev Shabbos right now as I'm filming. It's Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Parshas Achrim as Kedoshim, but we are going to be filming Shevuos Daf Yud a little bit advanced because we have to upload it. And I get excited to learn these dafim, especially this week, and I said it a few times already, because we're going into Achrim. Achrim is all about the soyer hapnimi, the soyer hachitzon, the avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. And we are mamish on the daf. And the Baal Shem Tov says, on the mission of Ayin Roya v'oizen shamas v'chol masecha v'sefer nechtavim, he says that at one point in history, if we wanted to know the Dvar Hashem and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do, so Ayin Roya, you looked at the Urim v'Tumim, you're able to see it, the different letters light up, the names of the Shvatim. And then afterwards, in Bayis Sheni, there was no Urim v'Tumim, so you had the Oizen Shemas, you had the Baskol. And then today, there is no Nevuah, no Baskol, there's no Urim v'Tumim, so V'chol Masecho B'Sefer Nechtavim. You open the Parsha, you open the Daf, and when you see it coincide, you realize, wow, Masecho, the learning of our Daf is B'Sefer Nechtavim, is in this week's Parsha. It's amazing. Okay, so we're up to Daf Tesam with Beis Shevuos. It's 5 lines from the bottom. The word Ashkechan. We are in the middle of the Shita of Reb Shimon, who Reb Shimon holds that Seirei Rosh Chodashim is mechaper on the Aveira of Tahor She'achal Basar Tameh, Hekdesh Tameh. And we learned that out from Gzeira Shava of oven from Tzitz yesterday. And today, we go on to Seirei Regalim. How does Reb Shimon know that the Seirei Regalim are mechaper on Tumas Mikdash v'Kedasha that has no yediyah b'tchila, no yediyah b'soif? Says the Gemara, Ashkechan Seirei Shechodashim de mechaperim al tar she'achal satamei, because you have Gzeira Shava oven from Tzitz. Seirei Regalim de mechaper la she'ein b'yediyah loy b'tchila v'loy b'soif minolan. How do we know? How does he know that Seirei Regalim is mechaper in Tumas Mikdash v'Kedasha when you had no idea that you're Tamei b'chlal? You walked into the Azorah, you ate Hegdish, and you never found out that you're Tamei. Says the Gemara, K'da Amar Rabbi Yoel Gold. I'll tell you how. There is a Hekesh. Soyer was Soyer, Hachanami Soyer Soyer. Ve'iskesh Seirei Regalim Seirei Shechadasha, Ma Soyer the Rosh Chodesh b'Milsa the Kodesh Mechapri, Af Seirei Regalim b'Milsa the Kodesh Mechapri. So there's a pasuk when you go to Parshas Pinchas and you take a look at all the Seirim by every Moyed, every Regal, and Rosh Chodesh. Yeah, from Rosh Chodesh, Pesach, Shevuos, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkos, they all bring a Soyer, and it says the Vav HaChibur by the Regal, by each of them, almost all of them, we'll see later, to be Mechaber the Soyer HaRegalim to the Soyer of Rosh Chodesh. Just like Soyer of Rosh Chodesh, it's B'Milsa the Kodesh Mechapri. It's Mechaper on Kachim pertaining to Tumah. So Seirei Regalim is also Mechaper on Milsa the Kodesh, on Kachim pertaining to Tumah. And the case would be a Tomei she'achal as HaKodesh without a yediyah b'tchila and without a yediyah b'soif. Now here's the question. How do we know that the Seirei Regalim is Mechaper on this specific case of Tumas Mikdash? Of Milsa the Kodesh Mechapri, there are so many variations. How does he know that that's the specific case, specific Aveira, that Seirei Regalim is Mechaper for? Maybe it's Mechaper on the same Aveira as Rosh Chodesh, of Torah She'achal Satamei. If you're learning from the Hekesh, so maybe it's Mechaper on the same Aveira. So the Gemara can't be. Ha'amrinan va'oisa, oisa noisa oven, ve'ein acher noisa oven. Rosh Chodesh is exclusive. The Seirei of Rosh Chodesh is exclusive to the Aveira of Torah She'achal Satamei. And so it can't be that the Seirei Regal is mechaper for the same Avera. As to the Gemara, so maybe it's mechaper on the Avera that we just said the Seirei Chitzin of Yom Kippur is mechaper on, which is Yediyah L'Basoif. Like in the Mishnah. Mishnah explained exactly which Seir is mechaper for what. So Yom Kippur is mechaper for somebody who didn't know he was Tamei, walks into the Azorah, eats Hekdesh, and he only finds out afterwards. So maybe that's the kapara that the Seirei Regalim are mechaper for. The Gemara says, "Aminun achas b'shana." That's also exclusive. That kapara is exclusive to the Seirei Chitzin of Yom Kippur because it's achas b'shana. Kapara zul achas b'shana. It's only once a year. The Gemara says, Amay mechapri, so what are you going to say? So what is the Surah Regal mechaper? It can't be mechaper for Yom Kippur because it says Achaz Bashon. It can't be mechaper for Rosh Chodesh because it says Oisa. So maybe it's mechaper, Iyal sheyesh ba yediyah betchila v'yesh ba yediyah b'soif. You're going to tell me it's mechaper in a case where you knew you were tamei, then you forgot, and then you remembered. Hai bar carbon. That's mamish the case of carbon oil of a yerid. You already bring a carbon for that. You don't need the Seirah Regalim. Iyal sheyesh ba yediyah betchila v'ein ba yediyah b'soif. And if you're going to tell me maybe you had the idea betchila that you're telling me that you forgot and you didn't remember yet, we already said the Surah Pnimi, the Surah Lashem, is mechaper, not mechaper. It's toilet, protects you from an oynish until you remember and you bring your carbon, the chatas that you need to bring, the oil of the yared. So the mela, so it can't be that the Surah Golem is mechaper for that, because you already have something for that. Iyal she'ein ba yediyah betchila, aval yesh ba yediyah b'saif, that also can't be mechaper for, because Hai Sor Anasa B'chutz Yom Kippur Mechaper. Right? And that, we already said, it's Achaz Bashonu. That also is exclusive to the Sor Anasa B'chutz. So Al Korchacha Eina Mechaper Elo Al She'en B'yediyah Lo B'tchila V'lo B'soif. So by process of elimination, we eliminate each of the variations, each of the cases of Tumas Mitzvah Kedashav, by saying that all those other variations are unique to the other karbanas that were mentioned. The only one left over without a sayr, without a kapara, is a guy who became tamei, had no awareness, no idea that he became tamei, loy b'tchila v'loy b'soif, and that the sayr golem is mechaper for. Okay, that's Shittas Reb Shimon. It says the Gemara, Meir Omer kol ha'seirim kaparoson shava. He says there's no difference between the Surah Chitzon of Yom Kippur, the Surah Rosh Chodesh, the Surah Regalim. It's all the same, and they're all mechaper for all of the different variations of Tumas Mitzvah Kedash. In other words, the Surah Rosh Chodesh is mechaper even for Yediyah B'Soif, and the Surah Regalim is mechaper even for Torah She'achal Satame. They're all mechaper for everything. My time at the Rebbe, how does Rebbe know this? It says the Gemara, Omar Kra. The Torah says, when we're talking about the seir-ism of the regalim, it says the word seir chatasachat. Seir could have said seir, and instead it says seir with a vav. Why does it have a vav by every regal and Rosh Chodesh?
I'm showing that right now, how it says a vav.
Oh, now it has a vav. Almost all of it. The Gemara is going to ask soon that two of them don't, right? Shevuos and Yom Kippur don't. But for this conversation right now, it's enough that most of them, even though if you take a look at the parsha, Shevuos and Yom Kippur don't have the vav, but most of them do. And from the fact that most of them do, you see the Torah is megala that he wants you to compare all the parshias to each other. So since it says useir with the vav, hukshu kol ha'seirim zel vav moisef al inyan rishon. So Gemara says kasal kadaitich kol chad v'chad b'chavrei gamar. Gemara now thought that the drasha would be learning one from the other, and then the other from the other, and the other from the other, right? Back and forth. The way Rashi explains it over here beautifully is, let's say Pesach comes after Rosh Chodesh, right? So Rosh Chodesh is mechaper on Torah she'achal satame. So just like Rosh Chodesh is mechaper on Torah she'achal satame, so if it's next to Pesach and it says Oseir, it's makish that Pesach is also mechaper on Torah she'achal satame. Right? And once I learned that Pesach is mechaper on Torah she'achal satame, the regel, right? And regel is also mechaper on when there's no Yediyah B'tchila and Yediyah B'Soif. And now you have, next to regolim, you have Yom Kippur. So you learn from regel to Yom Kippur that it's also mechaper on whatever the regel is mechaper on. And then Yom Kippur is mechaper on the Sarah Chitzin when there's only Yediyah B'Soif. So you mamish learn from Yom Kippur to Sukkot, which is the last one over there in the Parshiyas, that it's also mechaper, whatever Yom Kippur is mechaper on. So basically, the way the Gemara expresses, kol chad v'chad mechavrei gomar. Whatever is next to the other teaches on the other that it works on the other as well. So the Gemara says, that's a nice svara if you wouldn't be dealing with kachim. But v'amar Rabbi Yochanan, kol ha-Torah kula, Lameidin lamed milamed. It would work. One of the drushes, shater and the dreshes. Okay, so it's chayzer milamed. Yeah, you can have that kind of drusha to teach you that all the karbanos are hookish to each other and they all work for all kinds of others. But chutz mekachim she'ein lameidin lamed milamed. By kachim, if you have a parsha that you learn a halacha from a different place through a hekesh, let's say, in our case, that parsha can't be chayzer v'lamad to somewhere else. Because whatever this parsha has is only through a lamed. So it can't transfer a din that is learned from a lamed, from a hekesh, to somewhere else. And if you use the mechanism of kol chad v'chad mechavrei gomer, that's what ends up happening by kachim, and that's not allowed. So Gemara says, you're right, tole kasha, kulu mekama gomri. The truth is, the vavs, the vav achibur in those parshias, from Rosh Chodesh to Pesach, to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, the vav achibur is basically, it's connecting a chain all the way back to Rosh Chodesh, and they're all learned directly from Rosh Chodesh. So the Gemara says, Teinach called the chsiv be useir. Now, once you're telling me that you need that chain connection to bring you all back to Rosh Chodesh, asks the Gemara, I don't understand. You need that vav achibur now by each one. So if so, atzeres v'yom ha'kippurim deloi ksiv be yoseir minolan. It doesn't say the vav there. So how are you going to learn atzeres and Yom Kippur and bring it back all the way to Rosh Chodesh if there's no vav achibur there? Alam Rabbi Yoel Gold, elo tas l'Hashem b'moyadechem. Different drasha. We're falling off with this Reb Chama ber Chanina, who said that hukshu kol ha'seirim zelazeh. We're not going with that hakesh altogether because it won't work. Atzeres and Yom Kippur don't have a vav. So Rabbi Yoel says you learn it out from the word b'moyadechem. Hukshu kol ha'moyadim kulon zelazeh. Once the Torah sums up and generalizes all the moyadim in the words of Eila Tasu Lashem b'moyadechem, so now you can be makish in that word b'moyadechem is a hekesh that whatever sor is mechaper in one moyed also works for another moyed. What do you mean? Slow down. Rosh Chodesh is not a moyed. Gemara says no. Ivr Rosh Chodesh not a moyed. It's Rosh Chodesh is also a moyed. Kedam Rabbi Tammuz dahi shaita. The year that the Meraglim came back. We know they came back on the 8th of Av, and everybody cried on the 9th of Av, and the Mashlim said, Atam b'chisam b'chiyah shel chinam, v'aniyak v'lechem b'chiyah l'doiris. So that year, says the Gemara, the Tammuz maluya malyua. They had a Chodesh Ibur, they had a full month, which means 2 days Rosh Chodesh. They had the 30th day of Tammuz was the first day Rosh Chodesh, and the first day of Av was the second day Rosh Chodesh. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, then you'll be missing the cheshbon of Arboim Yom. It took them 40 days since they left from Chavta Sivan till they came back. Unless you put that extra day in, you don't get to the 9th of Av on the 40th day. So in order to do that, in order to make that cheshbon complete, to get 40 days from Chavta Sivan till the Bechiyah of Tisha B'Av, you have to add an extra day. So the Gemara says, Abaya says, that the Enochanami Tammuz of that year was a Chodesh Ibur, was 30 days. And how do we see that? A pasuk in Eicha says the Chsiv Koro Olai Moyed. They called another day a Moyed, which means they added a day Rosh Chodesh Lishbor Bachuroi. So here you see that Rosh Chodesh Al Kapanim, you see Rosh Chodesh is called a Moyed. That's the raya. What do you say, Rocky? Were you going to say something?
No, just that was a perfect. The Bechiyah shel chinam. The
Bechiyah shel chinam was a Perichelik. Which daf?
Kofei.
Rocky is a...
Was it Kofei?
Rock star. Yeah, a daf star. I think we should call it a daf star. Yeah, okay. Wow. Cafe. All right.
Because double check you later.
Omer Rabbi Yochanan. So now the Gemara is going weiter in Rabbi Meir. Again, Rabbi Meir holds that kol ha'seirim hukshu zelazeh. Omer Rabbi Yochanan. Umoide Rabbi Meir, that even though we say that all the seirim work for all the aveirus of Tumas Mikdash V'Kadoshav, because of b'moyadechem, that hekesh, Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Meir is moed the besar nas v'fnim shu ein mechaper kaparosan, then ein mechaper kaparosai. The sar nas v'fnim, the sar la Hashem, this week's parsha, achrei mois, bezois yov aaron al hakodesh, the sar la Hashem doesn't work for the other aveirus of Tumas Mikdash V'Kadoshav, but it only works for yediyah betchila, v'lo yediyah b'soif, it's toila. The hen and the other seir of the Sar Golem, the Sar V'Shchaydish, the Sar Achitzin is not mechaper the kapara, the special kapara the Sar Hashem is mechaper for. Who ain't a mechaper kaparasan? How do I know that the Sar Pnimi cannot work as a kapara for the other variations of Tumas Mikdash V'Kadoshav? Because it's kapara achas. It says v'chiper Aaron al karnois of achas bashana. Kapara achas mechaper v'ein mechaper shtei kaparas. So unfortunately, the Torah achas. Hein einon mechaper kaparasoi. How do I know that the other seirim cannot be mechaper on the aveira that the Sur Lashem is mechaper for? Amakra achas bashana kapara zu loitehei ela achas bashana. So the pasuk says twice achas bashana. Pasuk Yud Shmois Perek Lam pasuk Yud. It says Aaron v'chiper anal kanosev achas bashana. So the first achas bashana teaches me that the Surah Panimi can only have a kapara achas. It can only be mechaper on what we spoke about yediyah b'tchila with no yediyah b'sayif. And the second achas teaches that it's unique in the sense that no other Surah can accomplish that same kapara. Taina ma'achas says the Gemara, the Brisa, a raya to Rabbi Yochanan and Mafursh Brisa. Al she'ein bo yediyah lo b'tchila v'lo b'sayif. Al she'ein b'di b'tchila v'yish b'sayif. Al tor shachas atomei sirugam sirugdash v'asayir nas v'chutz v'chaper. And the Reb Meir says it all works for each other. The ilu sar nas b'fnim shiur. In that list, the Reb Meir mentions that all the seirim are mechaper for all the different averas. He doesn't include the sar hapnimi, the sar lashem, v'kaparasa nami shiur. So Mamela, once you see that he leaves that out in that list, you see that that's unique, and even Reb Meir is moided that doesn't work both ways. That hein eina mechaper kaparasai, and hu eina mechaper kaparasan. Says the Gemara Vayter. In the Mishnah we learned Reb Shimon Aimer seiri rosh chadash mechaper mal Torah she'achos hatamei. The case of Torah she'achos hatamei and shel regalim is mechaper when you don't have yediyah le betchila v'le b'soif, and Surah Chitzin is mechaper only yediyah b'soif. The Gemara says like this: Bishlay midrash chadashim le mechaper yad regalim. I understand when Reb Shimon says that Rosh Chodesh cannot be mechaper on regalim, on the oven of the regalim. I understand why. Rosh Chodesh can't work for a kapara of Tumas Migdash, the Kedoshav, where there's Yediyah L'Basoif. It says the Omer Kro, Avoin. It says in the Torah by the Surah of Rosh Chodesh, Lo Seises Avoina Eida, Oven Echadu Noisa. It could only be mechaper for one Aveir, which is Torah She'achal Kachem Tmeim. Ve'eina Noisa Shnei Avoinas. Elo de regalim mechapru ad rashi chadoshim. Why can't regalim be mechaper for the aveiro that the Surah Chodesh is mechaper on for Torah Shachal Satomei? Says the Gemara that can't happen either because Omar Kra again it says by the Chatas Rosh Chodesh oisa noisa oven ve'in acher noisa oven. It's unique. It's exclusive. This kapar is exclusive to the Chatas of Rosh Chodesh. Gemara says, "Bishlam the regalim loy mechaper na the yemek kapurim." I understand why the regel can't accomplish the same kapara as the Surah Chitzon of Yom Kippur, which is the Yediyah B'Soif, the Omer Kra Achas Bashana. It says over there Achas Bashana, and we darshan kapara zul to Achas Bashana. Elodiyah Makapurim nechaper yad the regalim, but let it work the other way around, where the Yom Kippur, the Surah Chitzon, is not just mechaper for Yediyah B'Soif. Also for whatever the regal, the shiur regal are mechaper for ein b'yediyah loy betchila v'loy b'sayif. It says no omakra achas, kapara achas mechaper, ve'ein mechaper shtei kaparas. It can only be mechaper one. It can't be mechaper for multiple kaparas. It can accomplish multiple kaparas. What is it? Kiksiv achas b'soyer hanasa b'fnim udechsiv. Where asks, what do you mean? You're darshaning this achas for the Surah Chitzon, to tell you that the Surah Chitzon is exclusive to Yediyah B'Saif, and it can't accomplish that kapar with the Surah Golem. But the achas that we're talking about, that you're darshaning it from, is said by the Surah Nasa B'Fnim. So the Gemara says, "No, Omar Kro Milvad Chatas HaKippurim V'Iskish Chitzon HaPanimi." There's a hekesh between Chitzon and Panimi, and once by Panimi it says achas. So that achas, that exclusivity that applies by the Surah Panimi also applies to the Surah Chitzon, because the Torah puts it together in the pasuk of Seir Izim Echot Chatas Milvad Chatas HaKippurim. When it talks about the Surah Chitzon, it says Milvad Chatas HaKippurim. So that Milvad is showing you that they share similarities in the sense that they're each exclusive in their kapara. Says the Gemara, Reb Shimon says in the name of Reb Shimon that Seirei Rosh Chodashim is mechaper on Torah she'achal satomei. Right? In the Mishnah, we have to take you back to the Mishnah moment, Abeis and Abeis. right? You had Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says, in the first opinion, Reb Shimon, two opinions of what Reb Shimon holds. We're much approaching like Ba'imir, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Yeah? First opinion of the Mishnah Daf Beis is Reb Shimon says that the Sorish Chodesh is mechaper on Torah Shachas Atomic, completely different Aveira, and the Sorish Golem is mechaper on Tumas Mikdash Kadosh of Ein Beidiyah Lo Betchil of Lo B'Seif. Shimon ben Yehuda says in the name of Reb Shimon, he says, Shimon holds that it's progressive, that the Sorish Chodesh is mechaper only on Torah Shachas Atomic. Moisef Alein Sorish Golem, that's mechaper on whatever the Sorish Chodesh is mechaper on, plus it's mechaper on if a person's tummy walked into the Azar, 8 hektish. And then you have Moisef Alein, Tumas, Mikdash, Moisef Sorry Achitz and Shiyam Kippurim, that it's mechaper not just for whatever the Rosh Chodesh is mechaper for, not just for what Golem are mechaper for, but it's even mechaper for Tumas Mikdash Kadosh of Idiyah B'Soif, and the Soyer, yeah, and that's how it works. Okay. So the Gemara says, Ma'ishnu de Rosh Chodashim, how did you decide to do it in that order? Why would you say Rosh Chodashim is particular, is exclusive? It's not mechaper for anything else on the Aveira of Regalim. The Omakra, because the Torah says by the Sor of Rosh Chodesh, Avain Echad Unoisa, it's singular. The Ein Unoisa Shnei Avainis. Gemara asks, but the Regalim Nami lo nechaper the Rosh Chodashim, the Omakra va'oisa. Doesn't it say by the Chatas of Rosh Chodesh that whatever that kapara accomplishes, that's only oisa, that's unique to Chatas Rosh Chodesh. Oisa noisa vein achan oisa oven. But says no, oisa lo mashmalei. Reb Shimon doesn't hold. According to Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, Reb Shimon doesn't hold of the drush of oisa. So Amela, the Rosh Chodesh is limited. It could only be mechaper for one aver of Torah Shachas Atom because of avayin. It's singular. Ve'ein oisa shnei avainis. Regalim is not limited. It doesn't have avayin, the singular lashon, and it's not nismayit from oisa of Rosh Chodesh because oisa lo mashmalei. Says Gemara, Ma'ishnu de Regalim de mechaper Yom Kippurim. Why the Seirei Regalim are not mechaper for the Aveira that the Sorah Achitzin of Yom Kippur is mechaper for? It says the Omakro Achaz Bashana. It says by Sorah Yom Kippurim Achaz Bashana Kapar Zlo Tei Achaz Bashana. In other words, whatever the Sorah Achitzin is mechaper for, whatever unique Aveira it's mechaper for, that can only be neskaper once a year by the Sorah Achitzin of Yom Kippurim. And that's why the Regalim can't accomplish that. Gemara says Yachi. If it's true that you're darshaning Achaz Bashana, the Yom Kippurim, Nami Lenechapri Ad the Regalim. Because it says another Achaz Bashana at the beginning of that pasuk. Achaz Ksiv. Kapara Achaz Mechaper Ve'ena Mechaper Shtei Kaparas. So why do you darshan both Achaz? Where it says Achaz Loi Mashmalei. No, he doesn't darshan that Achaz. Amai says the Gemara, why don't you darshan that Achaz? Dichi Ksiv Achaz Besor Nasa B'Fnim Ksiv. Why you want to darshan the achaz, the first achaz? Because really that pasuk, the whole pasuk where it says achaz twice, is talking about a sorah nasa b'fnim, not even a sorah achitzin. So you don't want to apply it to the sorah achitzin because it's talking about a sorah nasa b'fnim. So yachi dirigolim nami nechaper ad Yom Kippurim. So if you're not applying the first achaz because it's talking about a sorah pnimi, so then you lost the drush of the second achaz to exclude regolim from the kapara that the sorah achitzin gives. Why? Because that achaz that you darshan it from, the chiksev achaz, b'sorah nasa b'fnim ksev, that second achaz is also in the same pasuk of b'sorah nasa b'fnim. So just like you don't want to apply the first achaz to the sorah achitzin because it's talking about sorah pnimi, second achaz also is talking about sorah pnimi. So the Gemara says, no, la'olam achaz mashmalei. It really does darshan achaz. But the reason why it doesn't darshan the first achaz in the pasuk, that's because shani achad, the omakra, look at the context. The words, V'chiper Aaron al karnoisav achaz bashana. The karnos we're talking about is the mizbeach hapanimi. Karnoisav the mizbeach hapanimi, hu de kapara achas mechaper ve'ene mechaper shtei chaparas. That exclusivity that achas teaches us is specific to whatever pertains to the karnos of the mizbeach hapanimi, because that's how the Torah articulates it. V'chiper Aaron al karnoisav of the mizbeach achas bashana. So mainly you can't use that achas for sorah achitzin. And once you don't use that achas for sorah achitzin, hadechitzin afilu shtei kaparas. So therefore the chitzin can enechanami be mechaper for shtei kaparas. Okay, I think we'll stop over here just for the sake of coming to a close of this sugya. In the next The next sugya is pretty much a brand new sugya. So we're going to stop over here for today's daf, and Mitzvah tomorrow we'll continue together from Amar Ula to Daf Yud Aleph.